Now it's time for the second step for this garage door sealing. I already got the bottom seal. Now I'm going to put foam insulation around the inside of it. And I'm using this Matador insulation. It is 21/4 inches tall, right? So I already measured from the bottom to the top, and it's 21/4 for every panel. The width is a little long for these, but that's normal. You almost always have to cut them to width. So I got this nice Johnson straight edge, and I'm going to be putting it behind, not in front, but behind. And then in here, and you can see this fits perfectly. This is 48 inches. So I'm going to be going for 48 inches on this panel. Now, not all the panels are the same. This width is going to be different than the width right next to it, so make sure you measure each one. And there could also be some bends. See, this one doesn't really fit perfectly. It's actually a little tight. Tight is okay, because you can always just like push it in, because it's foam, it's going to have a little bit of expansion. I aim for a little bit thicker, just so it's a nice tight fit. I do want the foam to go behind, right? But there's not a lot of room. So there's a distance between this raised edge and inside here that I'm going to see if I can force it. But there's not a lot of room. It's about 3/4 of an inch. And I might be able to get as much as 1 inch if I can bend it around it. But I'll see how thick this actually is. Now, since I'm going to be cutting this edge has one corner that's kind of mashed, and this has a whole edge that's mashed. So I'm probably going to keep this one. This has a pretty nice surface on it. Like, the other side is definitely foam, and you can see they've got the relief cuts in here. But this is definitely squishy foam, and I wouldn't have been as happy if this was on the outside. But since this is going to be the surface that's visible to the garage, that's going to look really good. Okay. So this isn't going to quite go through everything. See these little bubbles? This is going to make a mess, so just be aware of that. I'm going to transfer that to the other side. And this side isn't going to be as important because it's not going to be visible, but still want to try to get it close. Good to have a shop vac at this time. I do not. So it's a little thicker than 1 inch. Let's see if I can fit it in there, and we'll go from there. Now, there's no way that's going underneath there. It's not going to happen. All right, so I got to cut off so a little bit right here so I can get underneath. And I'm looking at approximately 2.5 inches. So it's plenty deep enough. Okay, that's something. little shorter. It is about 47 inches. All right, so I got 2 crushes here. I got 1 crush over here. I think I'm going to cut off this side. All right, so 47 inches. Now I'm pretty sure I'm going to run into the same thing here, but I'm just going to try it and see. It does kind of fit under there with the right kind of persuasion, but getting the angle just right. That's not going to happen. So this one is about 1 7/8. When I was trying to push that in, I kind of broke it right here. I'm going to still try to use this piece, but yeah, just don't do what I did. So I'm going to do one for the top right corner now. It's going to be another 48 incher. The last one was 2.5 inches for the relief that I have to cut. This one was 2 7/16 approximately. Now I was thinking about using a skill saw or a reciprocating saw, and mostly it's just the noise. But also the foam that would fly everywhere. So I'm just going to stick with this for right now. I might change my mind after I do the pack. So this is where I'm going to test the feasibility of stuffing this in with this reinforcement here. May be a very bad idea. Now I can get those 2 pieces in. You know, that actually gave me an interesting idea. Well, that's an option. I could cut that a little thicker on the rest of them and then just stuff that in. That way I'll maintain this nice rigid thick plastic backing, because that's probably going to be doing a lot better than these little cutouts anyway. And this here. Cool. Yeah, I like that way better. All right. take this scrap piece, 2.5. So let's test and see a full thick one. So I can force that in down here. So I'll trim this 1/4 inch off. Much better, and plus it's going to seal this gap underneath the bar too. Cool. So since I'll never be happy if these ones aren't the same, I'm going to take those out and I'm going to redo those. I'm going to go a little bit further than 1/2, just so that this will really squeeze to the other piece. Actually, I should probably go more than 1/2 on the other piece, so it'll press against that bar. Let's go with 2.5. I'm going to play with the idea of making this one a little thicker, not that much. It's going to be a clear fit. Okay, yeah, I like that. Well, that's a nice fit. That's going to make this easier too. This one wasn't bad, it was just on the thin side. I'm going to make this one thicker. Just so you can see the difference, here is a normal thickness. Here's the thickness that I'm cutting, and this is what I'm cutting off. It's a little bigger than 1/8 of an inch. As good as it's going to get. in. But it's a little thin, so I'm going to make a new one of these. So now that I'm not measuring to the inside anymore, I need to measure to the outside. So from young to here, it's about 45 1/4. So you see what it's been cutting like with the knife that's been slightly used. And I know that everybody says use a sharp blade, so I'm going to switch this out with a new one just to see. Let's put a brand new one. Alright, new blade. Is it better? Yes. Is it dramatically better? Not really. Yeah, okay. Much less of a mess. Yep, that's way better. I think right here is probably the best example of what it looks like, the difference between a sharp knife and a dull knife. So here we got the dull knife, and we got the sharp knife. And the left side of the door is going to be a little more interesting because I got to get underneath the left side and underneath the right side. It's not going to be more difficult, just more work. So this one's causing most of the foam now. Let's see if I can make it a little bit better. See what the difference of sharp and chef knife makes. Yep, yeah, big difference. The cutting feels a little easier. The big difference is the mess. This is making like it made three pieces. Okay, so that's half of it, and I really like the way it's looking. This looks a lot nicer, a lot more reflective too, so it's going to help light up this garage. So I imagine it's getting caught up on these two bolts right here. Alright, so just so you can see what I'm looking at, that's the bolts that it has to go behind. Only got a ½ inch. This will likely break apart, but I'll see what I can do. Okay, well, that's something. Okay. That went better than expected. That's definitely the most tedious part, is all these little ones, because not only you have to cut them, you also have to trim them, so that part's done. So that's that. We are set. And so how well does it work? It feels just like my house right now in here. It feels great. I still have one more thing to do. I have to do the outside, the vinyl strip. But it's looking real good. I guess that's a big thing too. It just looks real nice. That looks like a professional garage. All right, so since we added a little bit of weight onto here, we want to make sure that the door is properly balanced. So by that I mean we need to make sure that that spring is properly tensioned. So we should be able to lift the door about halfway up and it should stay there. We're going to check that. Pull the release. So it wants to fall. So it is definitely heavier than it was, and we need to adjust that. So we need to tighten this spring up. So right now this shaft is under a lot of tension because the cable on the side is holding the door up. So it's trying to pull, and as soon as we loosen that spring, this is going to try to spin. It's going to try to spin that direction and try to loosen up that cable. So we need to stop that from happening. The only reason I'm putting this board here is just so that it doesn't damage the wall. It's not important, but it is a good idea. So you see this bolt and this bolt, they're almost always a 3/8, so I got a 3/8. So I'm going to need to loosen these two up, but I need to have rods in here to hold this in place before I do that. Alright, so these are called winding rods, and they're just for this purpose. Whenever you're doing this, a general rule of thumb, never be standing in this area because if this thing shatters, it will damage you. Over here is okay, although over here is better because this spring could also break in this process. So this set of winding rods has this rubber cap and you can kind of move it up and down, but that's just to tell you how deep it's going. That way you can make sure that you have it in there properly before you loosen it. So I got the rod in there and I'm going to loosen these up, and when I do, I'm going to feel a lot of force pushing down. There's one, and there's two. So right now, I'm going to push up. Alright, that's one, two, and three. Okay, so I'm just turning this nut, or this bolt, until I feel a pinch, and then I'm going to tighten it up another half turn. Alright, same thing on this one. Okay, and now I'm going to release this one. And go down real slow. And the reason you want to go slow is because you want to make sure if there is potential it could spin. You don't want that to happen. Let this guy go. Pretty close. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, I'll leave it there. Arguably, I could put on one more crank, but I'm going to leave it right there. The thing to keep in mind is that when you put on a brand new spring, it's you're looking at about 27 to 32 turns, like right from scratch. So if you put on way too many, you could break the spring. So just go small amounts, do a couple. And there is also a theory that you want to tap down the spring a little bit to allow for expansion, because as you're tightening it up, the spring wants to go that way, and you want to give it room to grow. And you know, there's probably some merit to that, but also keep in mind that as the door goes up, the spring's going to want to collapse a little bit. So I don't know. Somebody needs to thoroughly test that, but I'm not going to be the guy. This is the way I did it, and if I had to do it again in the future, I'd do it the exact same way.